Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time we're exploring some pretty unconventional wisdom from a successful entrepreneur. We're going to be talking about things like overcoming societal expectations, the power of gut feelings, and how even those who have made it still grapple with happiness.
Yeah,
Oh, we got a pretty fascinating story about $1 million mistake that teaches a valuable lesson about trusting your instincts. Ready to jump in?
absolutely. Let's do it. What's so interesting about this entrepreneur's story is that it just completely flips the script on what we usually think of as a path to success.
Yeah, so okay, picture this. Our subject decides to ditch high school and move to Italy at 18.
Wow.
Years later, she ends up with a master's degree and builds a restaurant empire. 12 locations in Toronto and 2 in LA.
That's incredible.
It makes you wonder, does following the rules always get you where you want to be?
That's exactly the point, right? It challenges us to think that maybe, just maybe, forging your own path can lead to some pretty unexpected and remarkable outcomes. It reminds us that we don't always have to, conform to those societal pressures to achieve our goals.
Totally. And she doesn't just talk the talk either. This entrepreneur has dealt with her fair share of criticism, especially after appearing on, well, a rather popular podcast.
Oh, interesting.
And, it would have been easy to just crumble under the weight of all those opinions. But she chose a different path.
Her response to that whole experience was super insightful. She basically said, why even try to please everyone? Which is impossible, right?
Yeah.
What really matters is staying true to yourself and your vision. And I think that's a powerful message for literally anyone, but especially those who are trying to navigate the noise of the world.
Yeah. It really makes you think, what could you achieve if you weren't so worried about what other people thought? What's one thing you could do today to step outside those expectations and just be yourself?
Yeah, it's a really liberating thought to just let go of that constant need for approval and just focus on what truly matters to you.
For sure. Now, this entrepreneur's journey wasn't all sunshine and roses. She's very open about a major financial setback. $1 million loss, in fact.
Oh, wow.
And the kicker, she knew it was a bad idea from the start.
Here's where it gets really interesting. She ignored her gut feeling and listened to outside voices, promises of funding, advisors saying it would all work out. It's a classic example of getting swept up in the hype and losing sight of your own intuition.
And that brings us to a question for you listening.
hmm
Have you ever been in a situation where you regretted not listening to that inner voice, that feeling of, oh, I knew I shouldn't have done that? It can be a powerful, albeit sometimes painful teacher.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that our instincts often hold valuable information that our conscious minds haven't fully processed yet. And tuning into that gut feeling can definitely save us from a lot of heartache and maybe even some financial woes down the line.
Oh yeah, for sure. So how did this entrepreneur bounce back from such a major setback? Well, that's where we'll pick things up in part 2. But before we go, let's shift gears for a second and talk about her unique perspective on the restaurant business. She has this analogy that I absolutely love. Evaluating a restaurant is like watching a well-made film.
Oh, I love that analogy too. It really highlights that it's not just about the food on the plate, it's about the whole experience, right? The ambiance, the service, the overall feeling you get when you walk in the door. Everything has to work together seamlessly, just like the elements of a great movie.
Exactly. It's like the acting, the directing, the soundtrack, all those pieces coming together to create one cohesive and engaging story. And that principle, I think, applies to any business, really.
Absolutely. Success in any field requires you to pay attention to every detail and make sure all those elements are working in harmony to support your vision. It's about creating a holistic experience, not just focusing on one isolated aspect.
Right. But even with all this success, this entrepreneur is incredibly candid about, well, the pursuit of happiness. We often think that achieving certain milestones, like financial wealth or whatever, will bring us joy, but she offers a different perspective.
Yeah, she brings up a really fascinating point. Money doesn't automatically equal happiness, even for those who seem to have it all,
Right.
And she's observed this firsthand, and it's just a really good reminder that true fulfillment often comes from somewhere a little bit deeper.
It's kind of a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
We work so hard to achieve these external markers of success, thinking they'll bring us happiness, and then sometimes we get there and realize, wait, something's still missing.
Absolutely. That's where this whole concept of living an examined life comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's about really taking the time to understand your values, like figuring out what truly brings you joy and then building a life that aligns with those core principles.
So how do we actually, do that? Well, she offers a piece of advice that might sound kind of counterintuitive. Want less. It's a world that's constantly telling us to strive for more, more, more. It's a powerful reminder to simplify our desires and just find contentment in the present moment.
Yeah, it's about shifting our focus from that external validation to internal fulfillment. Instead of chasing those fleeting pleasures, we can cultivate some lasting contentment by appreciating those simple things and just letting go of that constant need for more.
And finally, this entrepreneur reminds us that we never really know when our time is up.
Yeah.
It's a sobering thought, but also a powerful call to action, I think.
It is. It's about embracing the present moment, pursuing our passions, and not taking any of our time for granted. If we connect this back to the bigger picture, it's about living with that sense of urgency, not in a frantic way, but in a way that motivates us to make the most of every opportunity.
It's about savoring those experiences, nurturing those relationships, and just living in alignment with our values. Because ultimately, we never really know how much time we have left.
And that brings us to the end of part 1 of our deep dives. We've covered a lot of ground already, from unconventional paths to success to the importance of trusting your gut and finding happiness beyond those external achievements.
But we're not done yet. In part 2, we're going to delve deeper into this entrepreneur's unique business insights and explore that million-dollar mistake that taught her such a valuable lesson. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of unconventional wisdom. When we left off, we were talking about that interesting analogy of evaluating a restaurant like you would a well-made film.
Yeah, it's such a great way to think about it. It's not just about the food itself, it's about the entire experience. But she actually goes even deeper than that and shares some really specific insights into what makes a restaurant successful, like really successful.
Yeah, she's definitely got a keen eye for detail. Like she talked about walking into this bustling restaurant, totally packed, seeing this huge kitchen staff and instantly knowing they were headed for trouble.
Wow, really? You'd think a packed restaurant would be like, a good sign, right?
Exactly.
But she could practically predict their downfall. It's a good reminder that a busy restaurant doesn't always equal a profitable one.
Totally. She's really learned to look beyond the surface and analyze those underlying systems and costs. It's a lesson that I think applies to so many areas of life, actually.
Yeah.
Success often lies in the details that most people overlook.
That's so true. And speaking of details, this entrepreneur has a very specific approach to decision-making, especially when it comes to those big, potentially life-altering choices.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She really emphasizes that balance between trusting your gut instinct but also having that keen sense of opportunity. It's not about being reckless, but about recognizing when the stars align and having the courage to take a leap of faith. Remember how she kind of stumbled into the restaurant business in the first place?
Oh, yeah. It was totally by chance. She just happened to walk by a restaurant, struck up a conversation with the owners, and boom, 2 weeks later, she's a partner.
I know.
Talk about being in the right place at the right time. But even with that element of serendipity, she still really stresses the importance of clarity.
Yeah, that inner clarity is crucial. She talks about how you have to do the inner work, understand your values, and truly know what you want before you can even recognize those right opportunities when they come along.
So it's not about just blindly following every impulse or whim, right?
Right.
It's about cultivating that self-awareness so that your gut instincts are aligned with, your authentic goals.
Exactly. It's about having that clear vision of where you want to go so you can navigate all those unexpected twists and turns with confidence.
Now, remember how we talked about her refreshing perspective on happiness? We often think that external achievements will bring us joy, but she cautions against falling into that trap. She even observes this among billionaires.
It's such a thought-provoking observation, right? She's arguing that true happiness actually requires more than just material possessions or outward success. It requires what she calls an examined life, which is basically a deep understanding of yourself and what truly brings you joy.
Yeah. She advocates for wanting less, which, that might sound counterintuitive in a society that's constantly pushing us to want more, 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 but it makes so much sense when you think about it. When we're always striving for more, can we ever truly be content with what we already have?
It's a really powerful idea. Maybe this week you could even try focusing on just one thing that you're grateful for each day. It could be just a small step towards shifting your focus away from constantly wanting more, more, more.
I love that. It's about appreciating those simple things and finding that contentment in the present moment. But she doesn't just talk about wanting less in like a general sense.
Right.
She also emphasizes the importance of building a foundation before trying to blow up, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like building a house. You need a strong foundation before you can add on all those fancy features and extra floors. In business, that foundation could be your core team, your financial resources, or maybe your systems and processes.
So it's about having those essential elements in place before you try to expand too quickly.
Exactly. It's about prioritizing that sustainable growth over fleeting hype. And you know what? That actually ties right back to her experience with that $1 million loss.
Ah, yes, that story.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful reminder that even the most seasoned entrepreneurs can make mistakes, sometimes really, really costly ones. But what's so inspiring is how she owns that experience and uses it to extract some really valuable lessons.
Absolutely. She's incredibly candid about the emotional toll that it took on her. She even described feeling like physical pain when she talked about the experience.
Wow.
But she doesn't shy away from those details. She kind of dissects what went wrong, analyzes her own decisions, and ultimately emerges with a profound takeaway.
And that takeaway is
All about trusting your gut, even when it goes against the advice of experts or the allure of that seemingly lucrative opportunity.
okay, so it's a lesson that has cost many entrepreneurs dearly.
Absolutely. That temptation to override our intuition with logic or data or maybe the opinions of others can lead us down a really dangerous path.
Right. And she admits that she got swept up in the hype, ignored all those warning signs, and just ultimately went against her better judgment.
Mm.
And that's a mistake she says she'll never repeat.
I think it's a powerful reminder that even the most successful people can fall prey to those external pressures and just lose sight of their inner compass. But the true mark of a successful entrepreneur isn't avoiding failure altogether. It's about learning from those setbacks and emerging even stronger and wiser.
And speaking of facing challenges, let's not forget her experience with online trolls, right?
Oh, right.
She faced some pretty intense backlash after appearing on a certain podcast, even receiving death threats. But her response to all that negativity is actually incredibly inspiring.
What's so fascinating is her ability to just detach from the opinions of others. She basically said, nobody's really thinking about you that much. People are too busy, preoccupied with their own lives.
Yeah.
And, it's such a liberating perspective, isn't it?
Totally. It's so easy to get caught up in what other people think, especially in the age of social media where everyone has an opinion and a platform to share it. But her experience just reminds us that most of that noise is really just that noise.
Right.
Yeah.
She encourages us to focus on our own path, our own goals, and not to let the negativity of others derail our journey. It's a powerful reminder that true validation comes from within, not from any external sources.
And, that actually connects back to that whole idea of living an examined life.
Right.
It's about figuring out what truly matters to you and building a life that aligns with your values, regardless of what anyone else might think.
Exactly. It's about creating a life that brings you genuine joy and fulfillment completely on your own terms. And that brings us to, I think, the final and maybe most important takeaway from her story, the importance of figuring out what truly makes you happy. And I think she makes a really good point that it's a journey, a process of self-discovery. And it often involves facing some pretty uncomfortable truths and maybe even challenging those societal expectations that we've all kind of grown up with.
Yeah. She doesn't offer some simple formula for happiness,
Right.
Because there isn't one. It's about doing the work, as she says, which I think means examining your beliefs, confronting your fears, and just ultimately defining what a fulfilling life looks like for you, not for anybody else.
Absolutely. And she even suggests asking yourself this really simple but super profound question, what would make me happy right now?
It's a good reminder to just focus on the present moment, appreciate all those little things, and create a life that brings you joy on a daily basis.
After hearing all this, I can't help but think about what I would ask her if I actually had the chance. It's amazing how someone's life experiences can spark such profound introspection for the rest of us.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's actually a great transition to how we're going to wrap up this deep dive into this entrepreneur's wisdom. We want to leave you with this final thought-provoking question. If you could ask her one question to gain more insight into her success and life philosophy, what would it be?
Yeah. Take a moment to really ponder that. What's that one burning question you would ask her? And maybe even more importantly, how can you apply the lessons we've explored today to your own life?
Yeah. Remember, that path to success and happiness, it's rarely ever linear. It's filled with those twists and turns, setbacks and triumphs. But by embracing the unconventional, trusting your gut, and pursuing what really matters, you can create a life that is both meaningful and fulfilling. So keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep diving deep. Until next time.